The fluorescent lights hummed overhead in the cavernous shooting range at Fort Bragg, casting harsh shadows across the concrete floor. Maya Rodriguez pushed the industrial mop back and forth in practice strokes, her movements efficient and unremarkable. To anyone watching, she was just another civilian contractor, earning minimum wage to keep the military facilities clean. The acrid smell of gunpowder hung in the air despite the range being closed for cleaning, and empty brass casings clinked softly as her mop nudged them into neat piles. She paused at lane 7, remembering the young Marine who'd been struggling with his 800-meter shots earlier. His breathing was all wrong, jerky and anxious. She'd wanted to say something, explain how the diaphragm needed to move like water, smooth and controlled, but civilian cleaning staff didn't offer marksmanship advice to Marines. That would raise questions she couldn't answer. The heavy steel door at the range entrance clanged open, echoing through the space. Maya didn't look up, continuing her methodical cleaning pattern. Footsteps approached. Measured, deliberate. Military bearing was unmistakable once you knew how to recognize it. "Range is closed for maintenance," she called out without lifting her head, her voice carrying just a trace of her childhood Tejano accent. "I can see that." The voice was gravelly, confident. "Just need to grab something from the equipment locker." She glanced up then, meeting the eyes of a man in his late 30s with the kind of weathered face that spoke of years spent in harsh conditions. His civilian clothes, jeans, and a simple gray t-shirt couldn't disguise the coiled readiness in his posture. The way he moved, the alertness in his scan of the room, the unconscious habit of keeping his hands free and ready. Special operations, definitely. "Locker's open," she said, returning to her mopping. "Just don't track mud on what I've already cleaned." He chuckled, a genuine sound. "Yes, ma'am." Maya continued working, hyper-aware of his presence as he moved toward the equipment area. She'd learned to fade into the background, to become invisible. It was a survival skill that had served her well in two very different kinds of warfare, the kind fought with bullets, and the kind fought with bureaucracy and legal paperwork. She was reaching under the shooting bench to collect more brass when she felt eyes on her. Looking up, she found the stranger studying her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. His gaze had shifted from casual observation to something else entirely. "That's an interesting tattoo," he said quietly. Maya's blood turned to ice. She followed his line of sight to her left forearm, where her rolled-up sleeve had revealed the edge of black ink. She quickly adjusted the fabric, but it was too late. He'd seen enough. The tattoo was small, discreet, just a series of numbers that looked like coordinates to most people. But to someone with the right knowledge, someone who understood the significance of confirmed long-range eliminations, those numbers told a very different story. 4,247 meters, a record that had made her a legend. "Don't know what you're talking about," Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline now coursing through her system. He stepped closer, and she noticed the way he moved. Not threatening, but definitely focused. Most people get tattoos of dates that matter to them. Birthdays, anniversaries. But coordinates? That's unusual. Maya's mind raced through options. Deny everything, make an excuse and leave. Or, she studied his face more carefully. The slight scar through his left eyebrow, the calluses on his trigger finger, the way his eyes automatically tracked the room's exit points. This wasn't just any soldier. "You know," he continued conversationally, "I've heard stories about that particular shot. Took place in Afghanistan, 2019. Taliban commander. Holed up in what everyone thought was an impossible position. Official reports say it was weather conditions and equipment that made the shot so remarkable, but people in the community know better." Maya set down the mop, her decision made. If he knew enough to recognize the coordinates, he knew enough to cause her serious problems. Better to control the conversation than let him drive it. "What people in the community?" she asked. "People who've made difficult shots themselves. People who understand that a 4,200-meter kill isn't just about having the right rifle. It's about reading wind patterns at extreme distance, calculating for the Coriolis effect, accounting for atmospheric pressure changes. It's about being completely, utterly calm when the stakes are highest." She crossed her arms, studying him with the same intensity he'd shown her. "And you are?" "Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison, SEAL Team 6. And unless I'm very much mistaken, you're not really a janitor." Quote. The words hung in the air between them. Maya felt the familiar weight of her past pressing against her chest, the careful construct of her new life threatening to crumble. For 3 years, she'd been just Maya Rodriguez, civilian contractor, invisible and unremarkable. Before that, she'd been Corporal M. Rodriguez, United States Army, sniper specialist. And for one perfect, impossible moment in the mountains of Afghanistan, she'd been something else entirely. "I clean floors for a living," she said finally. "That's all." Jake nodded slowly, but his expression said he wasn't buying it. That record shot. The shooter was officially KIA, but there were always rumors. Rumors about what? That the sniper survived. That the Army faked the death to protect someone who'd become too high-value a target. That somewhere, the person who made the impossible shot was living under a new identity. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. The convoy attack had been real. She still woke up sometimes with the sound of the IED explosion echoing in her ears. But she'd been medevaced out unconscious, and when she'd woken up in a German hospital 3 days later, Captain Sarah Martinez had been sitting beside her bed with an offer that would change everything. "Interesting theory," Maya said, "but theories don't mean much without proof." Jake reached into his back pocket and pulled out a photograph. It was grainy, taken from a distance, but it clearly showed a figure in military fatigues behind a Barrett M82A1 rifle, positioned on a rocky outcropping. The shooter's face wasn't visible, but Maya recognized the terrain. She recognized the exact spot where she'd made the shot that changed everything. "This was taken by a drone about 30 seconds after the elimination," Jake said. "The Army classified it immediately, but some of us keep track of things like this." Professional interest. Maya stared at the photograph, memories flooding back. The weight of the rifle, the way the wind had shifted just as she'd been about to fire, forcing her to wait another 20 minutes for the perfect moment. The satisfaction of seeing the target drop through her scope, knowing she'd just saved the lives of an entire platoon pinned down in the valley below. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I think you might be exactly what we're looking for." Before Maya could ask what he meant, Jake's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression darkened. "What is it?" Maya found herself asking, despite every instinct telling her to stay uninvolved. "Remember how I said I was SEAL Team 6? We've got a situation developing. High-value target, extreme range requirement, and our usual sniper is down with a broken collarbone." He looked at her directly. "I need someone who can make impossible shots." Maya felt the familiar pull of purpose, the thing she'd been missing for 3 years while pushing mops and emptying trash cans. But she also felt the fear. Fear of exposure, of losing the quiet life she'd built, of stepping back into a world where people tried to kill you for doing your job too well. "I told you, I'm just..." Maya Rodriguez, Army sniper, 3 Afghanistan deployments. Jake's voice was matter-of-fact, not threatening. Officially died in a convoy attack in Kandahar province, May 15, 2019. Unofficially, you've been working as a civilian contractor at various military installations under a new identity provided by Army intelligence. Maya's hand instinctively moved toward the small of her back, where she used to carry a sidearm. The muscle memory was still there, even after 3 years of forced retirement. "How long have you known?" "About 10 minutes. I took your picture when I first walked in, and ran it through some facial recognition software we're not supposed to have." He showed her his phone screen, where her face was highlighted in a green box, next to a military ID photo from 2018. "The system flagged you as a potential match, but I wasn't sure until I saw the tattoo." Maya closed her eyes, feeling the last of her carefully constructed normalcy slipping away. "What do you want?" "I want to offer you a chance to do what you do best. 1 mission. After that, you can go back to mopping floors if that's what makes you happy." "And if I say no?" Jake pocketed his phone. "Then I never saw you." The facial recognition software glitched. The photo was corrupted. "And there's no record of this conversation. You go back to being a civilian contractor, and I figure out another way to solve my problem." The honesty in his voice surprised her. Maya had expected threats, leverage, the kind of pressure the military typically applied when they wanted something. Instead, he was offering her a choice. "What's the mission?" "Classified until you're officially read in, but I can tell you it involves a shot that makes your 4,200-meter record look routine." Despite herself, Maya felt a spark of interest. There were very few people in the world who could even conceptualize what that meant, let alone execute it. The technical challenges alone would be staggering. "How far?" Jake smiled. And for the first time since he'd walked into the range, he looked uncertain. 6,000 meters, maybe more. Maya's breath caught. At that distance, she wouldn't just be fighting gravity and wind. She'd be dealing with the curvature of the Earth itself, atmospheric conditions that could change dramatically between shooter and target, and timing issues that would require split-second precision across nearly 4 miles of space. That's not a sniper shot, she said. That's artillery work. It's never been done before, but if anyone could figure out how... He gestured toward her concealed tattoo. Well, you already proved that impossible is just another word for hasn't been tried yet. Before we dive deeper into this incredible story, I want to take a moment to thank you for watching. Creating and narrating these detailed, novel-length stories takes tremendous time and research to bring you the most engaging content possible. We're embarking on a journey of nearly 50,000 words together. That's a full novella. If you're already hooked by what you've heard, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this story with someone who would enjoy it, and subscribing to the channel. Don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest stories. This is going to be an epic adventure, so get comfortable and let's continue with this remarkable tale. Maya looked around the empty shooting range, at the mop bucket and the scattered brass casings, at the mundane reality of her carefully constructed life. Then she looked back at Jake Morrison, who was offering her a chance to step back into the world she'd been forced to leave behind. Tell me about the target. 2 hours later, Maya found herself in a nondescript office building 20 minutes off base, following Jake through a maze of corridors that looked like they belonged to an insurance company. The only hint of the building's true purpose was the subtle security measures, card readers at every door, cameras that tracked their movement with mechanical precision, and the kind of reinforced construction that suggested the walls could stop more than just sound. Coffee? Jake asked as they entered a small conference room. It's actually decent here, not the usual military sludge. Quote, Black, Maya replied, settling into a chair that faced the door. Old habits. While Jake busied himself with a coffee machine that looked expensive enough to fund a small military operation, Maya examined the room more carefully. Whiteboards covered one wall, currently blank but showing the faint ghost marks of recently erased diagrams. A large monitor dominated the opposite wall, dark but ready for use. No windows, multiple exit points, and the kind of soundproofing that meant conversations here stayed here. So, she said as Jake handed her a steaming mug, this isn't exactly standard SEAL Team 6 facilities. You're right, this is a joint task force facility. Navy, Army, CIA, and a few other acronyms that don't officially exist. Jake took the seat across from her, deliberately keeping his hands visible and relaxed. We handle the operations that fall between the cracks of normal command structures. Black Ops. Gray Ops, technically. We operate in the spaces where traditional military action isn't feasible, but intelligence gathering isn't sufficient. He sipped his coffee, studying her over the rim. Maya, and I'm going to call you Maya because I don't know your current operational name. How much do you know about the current situation in the South China Sea? Maya considered her answer carefully. Even cleaning military facilities, she picked up information. Conversations overheard, briefing documents left on desks, the general tension that had been building among the personnel over the past 6 months. Enough to know that everyone's nervous about something. China's been building artificial islands in disputed waters, militarizing them faster than anyone expected. Last month, they installed what appears to be a new type of radar system on Fiery Cross Reef. It's sophisticated enough to track stealth aircraft, potentially neutralizing our tactical advantage in the region. Jake activated the wall monitor with a remote, and satellite imagery filled the screen. Maya leaned forward, automatically analyzing the terrain with a sniper's eye. The island was roughly kidney-shaped, maybe 2 kilometers at its widest point, with obvious defensive positions and what looked like underground facilities. The problem, Jake continued, is that this radar system isn't just defensive. Intelligence suggests it's linked to a new generation of hypersonic missiles that could threaten our allies in the region, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea. If those missiles become operational, the balance of power in the Pacific shifts dramatically. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work, so if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. So take it out, Tomahawk cruise missile, stealth bomber, submarine-launched torpedo, the Navy has plenty of options. All of which would be considered acts of war against a nuclear power. Jake clicked to the next image, showing the radar installation in detail. But a sniper elimination of key personnel during a crucial calibration window? That could be written off as an accident, equipment failure, any number of things that don't escalate into World War III. Maya studied the tactical situation. The radar installation was positioned on the highest point of the artificial island, maybe 40 meters above sea level. Defensive positions were visible around the perimeter, and the approach routes were limited and heavily monitored. Where's the shot coming from? Jake smiled grimly. That's where it gets interesting. The satellite image shifted, pulling back to show a wider view of the South China Sea. A red dot appeared on a small, uninhabited island nearly 6 kilometers away from the target. Mischief Island, Jake said, claimed by the Philippines but currently unoccupied. Our intelligence suggests the Chinese don't monitor it closely because it's considered strategically worthless, too small for military installation, too far from shipping lanes to matter for commerce. Maya did quick, mental calculations. 6,000 meters over water, with all the atmospheric variables that entailed. Wind patterns over the ocean were notoriously unpredictable, and the target zone would be elevated while the shooting position would be at sea level. It wasn't just difficult, it was theoretically impossible with current technology. What's the time window? The radar system requires manual calibration every 72 hours. During calibration, the primary technician has to physically access the external array for approximately 15 minutes. Intelligence indicates the next calibration window opens at 0600 local time, 3 days from now. And you need the technician eliminated during that window. Dr. Chen Wei, radar specialist, 43 years old, educated at MIT before returning to China. He's the only person on the island who fully understands the system architecture. Remove him during the calibration window, and the radar system becomes a very expensive paperweight until it can fly in a replacement, which could take weeks. Maya stared at the satellite imagery, her mind automatically working through the physics of the shot. Wind speed and direction across 6 kilometers of open water. The Coriolis effect at extreme range. Bullet drop that would require her to aim dozens of meters above her target. Temperature differentials between the shooting position and target area. It's impossible, she said finally. That's what everyone said about your Afghanistan shot. That was different. I had intelligence on wind patterns, detailed topographical data, and I could observe the target area for hours before taking the shot. This, she gestured at the screen. This is shooting blind across an environment I can't predict or control. Jake leaned forward. How small? 15 people had access to today's training schedule. 7 of them are in this room or accounted for at other secure locations. That leaves 8 people who could have leaked the information. Maya studied the faces around the table. Or someone's been conducting surveillance independent of any leaks. Someone with resources to track military contractors and monitor training activities. Possible, Martinez acknowledged, but less likely than an internal security breach. Captain, Maya said carefully, I need to understand something. 3 years ago, you told me that faking my death would give me a clean slate, a chance at a normal life. But someone's been keeping track of me this whole time. Someone knew exactly where to find me when you needed a sniper for this mission. Martinez was quiet for a moment, and Maya saw something like regret in her expression. The world changed after your Afghanistan mission, Maya. That shot, it did more than eliminate a Taliban commander. It demonstrated a capability that shifted international perceptions of American military precision. Other nations began developing countermeasures, investing in extreme-range systems of their own. And we realized we might need that capability again. So yes, we kept track of you. Not actively monitoring, but maintaining awareness of your location and activities. Maya felt the careful structure of her new life crumbling around her. The job at Fort Bragg hadn't been a coincidence. The security clearance that had seemed unusually easy to obtain. The supervisors who never asked too many questions. The way she'd been assigned to clean areas where she might overhear military conversations. It had all been orchestrated. I've been under surveillance for 3 years, she said. Under protection, Martinez corrected. There's a difference. What kind of protection? Jake answered instead of Martinez. The kind that keeps Chinese intelligence services from figuring out that the person who made the Afghanistan shot is still alive. The kind that prevents Russian assassins from tracking down America's most valuable sniper. The kind that stops domestic terrorists from targeting someone who's become a symbol of American military capability. Maya absorbed this information, realizing that her quiet civilian life had been more dangerous than she'd understood. How many people want me dead? Enough that we take it seriously, Martinez said, which brings us to the current situation. The wall display changed, showing a map of the South China Sea with new information overlaid. Maya saw shipping routes, military installations, and what looked like real-time positions of naval vessels from multiple countries. The radar installation on Fiery Cross Reef isn't just about regional military balance, Martinez continued. Our intelligence indicates it's part of a larger Chinese initiative to develop next-generation targeting systems. If they succeed, it could neutralize American stealth technology across the entire Pacific theater. So take it out with conventional forces. We tried. 3 months ago, a joint Navy SEAL and CIA operation attempted to infiltrate the island and disable the radar through sabotage. The mission failed. All 6 operatives were killed, and the Chinese increased security dramatically. Maya felt the weight of that revelation. 6 highly trained soldiers had died, attempting the mission she was now being asked to complete with a single shot from 6 kilometers away. Why didn't you tell me about the failed mission earlier? Because we needed you to evaluate the sniper mission on its own merits, not in comparison to previous failures, Jake said. But you deserve to know the full picture before you commit. The display showed detailed intelligence about the radar installation's current security, guard positions, patrol schedules, defensive systems that made conventional infiltration nearly impossible. But Maya also noticed something else. The positioning of the guards suggested they were prepared for close-range threats, not extreme-distance sniper fire. They're not expecting a shot from Mischief Island, she observed. No reason they should be. Until recently, no military in the world had the capability to make that shot reliably. Until me. Until you, Martinez confirmed. Maya, I want to be completely honest about what we're asking. This mission has a low probability of success and a high probability that you won't survive it. Even if the shot works perfectly, extraction from that location will be challenging. Maya studied the tactical situation more carefully. Mischief Island was isolated, with limited cover and no easy escape routes. If the Chinese figured out where the shot had come from, they could have helicopters and patrol boats at her location within minutes. What's the extraction plan? Jake activated another display showing underwater topography around Mischief Island. Submarine pickup, 12 hours after mission completion. You'll need to survive on the island until then. 12 hours is a long time if they're actively searching for me. We'll create diversions, false flag operations, electronic warfare, anything to keep their attention focused elsewhere. But ultimately, your survival will depend on concealment and evasion skills. Maya nodded, understanding the reality of the situation. She'd be alone on a small island, potentially surrounded by hostile forces, with nothing but her training and limited supplies to keep her alive until rescue arrived. There's something else, Martinez said. The person who sent you that text message today, we believe they're connected to a larger intelligence operation aimed at disrupting this mission. Chinese? Possibly. Or Russian. Maybe even domestic opposition from people who think this operation is too risky. Martinez leaned forward. But whoever they are, they know about you specifically. That means your cover is blown, and your current identity is compromised. Maya felt the last of her illusions about returning to civilian life evaporating. So I don't really have a choice about taking this mission. You always have a choice, but if you decline, we'll need to relocate you again, create another new identity, and hope that whoever's tracking you doesn't catch up. And if I accept? Then we complete this mission, and after that you disappear completely. New identity, new location, resources to stay hidden for as long as necessary. Maya looked around the room, at the serious faces and classified displays, at the weight of international consequences that had somehow become her responsibility. 3 years ago, she'd been a soldier following orders. Now she was being asked to make decisions that could affect the balance of power between superpowers. I need to see the complete mission profile. Everything: intelligence reports, contingency plans, rules of engagement, extraction protocols. If I'm going to do this, I want to understand every detail. Martinez nodded. Done. But Maya, once you read those files, you're committed. The intelligence is too sensitive to share with someone who might walk away. I understand. Jake stood up. I'll get the files prepared. How long do you need to review everything? Maya checked her watch. It was nearly midnight, and the mission transport was scheduled to leave in 16 hours. 6 hours. I want to understand the intelligence, test the weapon system one more time, and get some sleep before transport. We can give you 4 hours for review, 1 hour for final weapons check, and an hour for rest, Martinez said. The timeline is tight, but it's what we have. As Maya prepared to leave the conference room, Martinez called her name. Yes, ma'am? For what it's worth, I'm sorry about the deception. You deserved a genuine civilian life, after everything you sacrificed in Afghanistan. But sometimes the world doesn't give us the luxury of retirement. Maya nodded, appreciating the honesty. Captain, can I ask you something? Of course. That shot in Afghanistan, was it worth it? Did eliminating that Taliban commander actually make a difference? Or was it just another tactical victory in a war we were always going to lose? Martinez was quiet for a long moment. That Taliban commander was coordinating attacks against 3 different coalition bases. Our intelligence estimates that your shot saved at least 200 lives over the following months. Was the war worth it? That's above my pay grade. But that shot, that moment, yes, it was worth it. Maya left the conference room with Martinez's words echoing in her mind. She'd spent 3 years trying to forget the weight of that trigger pull, the moment when her decision to fire had changed everything. Now she was being asked to make another shot that could change everything again. But as she followed Jake deeper into the underground facility, toward rooms full of classified intelligence and tactical plans, she realized that she'd already made her decision, not because she didn't have a choice, but because this was who she was. Some people were born to heal, others to build, others to lead. Maya Rodriguez had been born to make impossible shots when everything depended on it. The intelligence briefing room was smaller than Maya had expected, designed for intensive work rather than large meetings. 3 walls were covered with monitors showing different aspects of the mission: satellite imagery, personnel files, tactical schematics, and real-time intelligence feeds from the South China Sea. Jake had left her alone with the files, understanding that she needed space to process the massive amount of information. Maya started with the personnel profiles, wanting to understand everyone who would be on Fiery Cross Reef during the mission window. Dr. Chen Wei's file was extensive. Born in Beijing, educated at Tsinghua University, before coming to MIT for graduate work in advanced radar systems. Brilliant, by all accounts, but also a family man with 2 teenage daughters and elderly parents. His wife was a professor of literature at Beijing University. Maya studied his photograph. A man who looked more like a professor than a military target, which was exactly what he was. The other personnel on the island were a mix of military guards, technicians, and support staff. Maya memorized faces, names, and behavioral patterns. The base commander, Colonel Zheng, was a career military officer with experience in Tibet and Xinjiang, not someone who would panic under pressure. The senior radar technician, Lieutenant Yang, was young but competent, potentially capable of taking over Chen's duties if given enough time. Most concerning was the presence of Major Shen, a special forces officer whose file suggested expertise in counter-sniper operations. His inclusion on the island wasn't explained in the intelligence reports, but Maya could guess. Someone in Chinese intelligence had considered the possibility of a long-range assassination attempt. Next, she reviewed the tactical intelligence about the island itself. Fiery Cross Reef had been transformed from a natural coral formation into a heavily fortified military installation. The artificial island was approximately 2 kilometers long and 1 kilometer wide, with a runway capable of handling military transport aircraft. The radar installation occupied the highest point, surrounded by defensive positions and anti-aircraft systems. What worried Maya most was the detection capability. The radar system they were trying to destroy was sophisticated enough to track incoming missiles and aircraft, but the intelligence reports didn't address whether it could detect high-velocity rifle rounds at extreme range. A .50 BMG bullet would have a significant radar signature, especially during the terminal phase of its flight. The meteorological data was both encouraging and terrifying. Weather patterns in the South China Sea were relatively predictable during the current season, with consistent wind patterns and stable atmospheric pressure. but relatively predictable at 6 kilometers, meant variations that could still push her shot meters off target. Maya studied the ballistic calculations in detail. The custom rifle and ammunition were theoretically capable of the shot, but the margin for error was impossibly small. Wind changes of just 3 miles per hour could cause a miss. Temperature variations of 5 degrees could affect bullet trajectory significantly. Even the rotation of the Earth, usually negligible at shorter ranges, became a factor at this distance. The most complex part of the mission profile was the timing. She would have approximately 15 minutes during the calibration window when Dr. Chen would be exposed and the critical junction box would be accessible. But the two targets were positioned 60 meters apart, requiring her to shift aim points while maintaining precise ballistic calculations. Maya ran through the sequence in her mind, acquire Dr. Chen as he began the calibration process, calculate wind and atmospheric conditions, make the first shot, then immediately shift to the junction box and repeat the entire process. At 6 kilometers, the bullet flight time would be several seconds, meaning she'd need to predict target movement and account for any changes in conditions between shots. The extraction plan was concerning but workable. After completing the mission, she would need to conceal herself on Mischief Island for 12 hours, while Chinese forces searched for the source of the attack. The island offered limited cover, mostly rocky outcroppings and sparse vegetation, but it was large enough that a well-concealed sniper position could remain undetected if she was careful. Maya moved on to the broader intelligence picture. The South China Sea situation was more volatile than she'd realized. Naval forces from multiple countries were operating in the area, creating a complex tactical environment where any incident could escalate rapidly. The American submarine waiting to extract her would be operating in waters patrolled by Chinese warships, adding another layer of risk to the mission. Most disturbing was the intelligence about the radar system's true purpose. While publicly described as defensive, the system was actually designed to coordinate with a new generation of hypersonic missiles capable of striking targets across the Pacific. If the system became fully operational, it could threaten American allies and potentially shift the balance of power in the region dramatically. Maya paused her reading to make coffee, needing caffeine to process the remaining files. As she waited for the machine to finish, she studied the photographs of Dr. Chen's family. His daughters looked like typical teenagers, school photos showing bright smiles and the awkward confidence of youth. His wife appeared in academic settings, clearly intelligent and accomplished in her own right. The human cost of her mission wasn't abstract. Dr. Chen wasn't a terrorist or a war criminal. He was a scientist working for his country's military. His death would devastate his family and colleagues. But his continued work could enable weapon systems that might kill thousands of American service members and allied civilians. Maya understood the calculus, but that didn't make it easier to accept. She returned to the files, focusing on the technical specifications of the rifle and ammunition. The Macmillan TAC-50A2 had been modified extensively for this mission. The barrel was custom-made for extreme range accuracy, with a twist rate optimized for the specific ammunition. The scope system incorporated real-time atmospheric data and ballistic computation, essentially turning the rifle into a guided weapon system. The ammunition was equally specialized. Each round was precision-loaded with carefully measured propellant charges and bullets selected for perfect weight and balance. Maya would carry only 10 rounds, reflecting both the weight limitations of her equipment load and the expectation that she would need no more than 2 shots. The most interesting aspect of the mission profile was the intelligence about how the Chinese would likely respond to the attack. Analysts predicted that the immediate reaction would be to assume equipment failure or accident, given the apparent impossibility of a sniper shot at that range. Only after detailed investigation would they consider external attack, providing a window for Maya's escape. But if they realized they were under sniper fire during the mission, the response would be immediate and overwhelming. Helicopter gunships could reach Mischief Island within 8 minutes of an alert. Patrol boats could be on station within 20 minutes. Maya would need to complete both shots and disappear before the Chinese understood what was happening. Maya moved to the final section of files, contingency plans, and emergency protocols. The mission planners had considered dozens of potential complications, from weather delays to equipment failures to unexpected Chinese military activity. But reading through the scenarios, Maya realized that most contingencies ended with mission abort or sniper elimination. The harsh reality was that this mission depended entirely on perfect execution under ideal conditions. There was no margin for error, no backup plan that could compensate for significant problems. Maya would succeed completely or fail catastrophically, with no middle ground. She checked her watch, 3 hours since she'd started reading. One more hour to absorb the remaining intelligence, then a final weapons check before transport. Maya felt the familiar pre-mission focus settling over her, though it took longer to achieve than it used to. 3 years of civilian life had dulled some edges, but the core skills remained. The last file contained something she hadn't expected, a psychological profile of herself, compiled from her military service records and classified observations during her civilian contractor period. Reading her own assessment was surreal. Clinical descriptions of her shooting ability, stress responses, and decision-making patterns under pressure. But one section made her pause. Subject demonstrates exceptional technical skill, but shows signs of isolation and disconnection from normal social relationships. Recommendation for long-term psychological monitoring to assess adaptation to civilian life. Maya realized that her handlers had been watching her more closely than she'd understood. Every interaction, every behavioral pattern, every sign of how well she was adapting to retirement had been noted and analyzed. The text message she'd received earlier wasn't just about mission security. It was about someone else who'd been watching her with equal attention. As she closed the final file, Maya understood that regardless of how this mission ended, her quiet civilian life was over permanently. Too many people knew who she was now, and too many interests were at stake for her to simply disappear again. This mission would either end with her death, or begin a new chapter in a life she'd never wanted to return to. But as she prepared to leave the briefing room, Maya realized something else. Despite the danger, despite the moral complexity, despite the almost certain loss of the life she'd built, she felt more alive than she had in 3 years. Some people were meant for quiet lives of safety and routine. Maya Rodriguez was meant for moments when everything hung in the balance, and only perfect execution could tip the scales. The 2,000-meter range looked different in the pre-dawn darkness. Floodlights created pools of harsh illumination against the black hills, and the air was crisp with the kind of cold that made every breath visible. Maya lay behind the Macmillan TAC-50A2, making final adjustments to the scope system that would either make her famous or get her killed. Atmospheric conditions are optimal, Jake's voice came through her earpiece. Wind speed steady at 4 miles per hour from the southwest, temperature holding at 38 degrees, humidity at 62%. Maya absorbed the data, her mind automatically calculating the ballistic adjustments needed. At 2,000 meters, the environmental factors were manageable. At 6,000 meters, the same conditions would require precision beyond anything she'd ever attempted. "Target acquired," she murmured, centering the crosshairs on a silhouette that had been positioned to match Dr. Chen's height and build. Through the advanced scope, she could see the target clearly despite the distance and darkness. This would be her final test shot before transport to the mission area. Everything after this would be operational, with no room for practice or correction. Maya controlled her breathing, finding the stillness between heartbeats, where her body became a stable shooting platform. The trigger broke cleanly, and the rifle's recoil was absorbed by her stance and the weapon's custom design. Even through ear protection, the sound was impressive, a sharp crack that echoed off the surrounding hills and faded into silence. "Hit, center mass," Jake confirmed. "Excellent shot." Maya rolled away from the rifle, working the stiffness out of her shoulders. The weapon was accurate and well-designed, but the physical demands of extreme-range shooting were significant. During the actual mission, she'd need to maintain perfect form while dealing with stress, limited time, and the knowledge that thousands of lives hung in the balance. "How's the scope system performing?" Jake asked as he approached her position. "Better than I expected. The real-time atmospheric data integration is smooth, and the ballistic computation seems accurate." Maya gestured toward the target downrange. "But this is still only 2,000 meters. Everything becomes exponentially more complex at mission range." Jake handed her a tablet showing weather predictions for the target area. Latest meteorological data from the South China Sea. Conditions look favorable for the mission window. Maya studied the forecasts, noting the wind patterns and atmospheric pressure trends. The data was encouraging, stable conditions with predictable variations. But she'd learned to be skeptical of weather predictions, especially when her life depended on their accuracy. What's the backup plan if conditions change? The mission window can be delayed by up to 6 hours if necessary. Beyond that, we abort and wait for the next calibration cycle. When's the next cycle? 72 hours later. But intelligence suggests the Chinese may change their procedures after this calibration, making future opportunities unlikely. Maya nodded, understanding the pressure. This mission had one realistic chance for success, and everything hinged on her ability to make 2 impossible shots under perfect conditions. "Time to go," Jake said, checking his watch. "Transport leaves in 30 minutes." As they packed the rifle and equipment, Maya felt the familiar pre-mission tension building. Part excitement, part terror, part anticipation of the unknown challenges ahead. It was a feeling she'd experienced before every major operation, but never with stakes this high. The transport turned out to be a civilian cargo plane, modified for covert operations, but maintained to look like a standard commercial aircraft. Maya's cover identity as Dr. Maria Santos, marine biologist, was supported by research equipment and academic credentials that would pass casual inspection. During the flight, Maya reviewed the mission profile one final time. The timeline was precise. Insertion on Mischief Island 18 hours before the mission window, time to establish a concealed position and confirm ballistic calculations, then the 15-minute window when everything would be decided. But as the plane flew through the night toward the South China Sea, Maya found herself thinking about the message she'd received earlier. Someone had been watching her with enough sophistication to track her activities in real time. That level of surveillance suggested resources and motivation beyond casual intelligence gathering. "Jake," she said during a quiet moment in the flight. "That text message. Have you figured out who sent it?" Jake's expression darkened. "Still working on it. But we've identified some concerning patterns in the intelligence traffic around this mission." "What kind of patterns?" "Information that should have been compartmentalized showing up in places it shouldn't. Communication intercepts suggesting that unfriendly parties might know more about our plans than we'd like." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the aircraft's air conditioning. "Are you saying the mission is compromised?" "I'm saying we're proceeding with enhanced caution and prepared contingencies." Jake leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Maya, if something goes wrong during the mission, if you encounter unexpected resistance or if the situation develops in ways we haven't anticipated, your priority is survival and extraction, not mission completion." That contradicts everything in the mission briefing. The mission briefing reflects official priorities. I'm giving you unofficial guidance based on my assessment of the risks. Maya studied Jake's face, recognizing the expression of someone who suspected more than he could prove. "What aren't you telling me?" "Nothing concrete. Just a feeling that there are players in this game who haven't revealed themselves yet." Before Maya could respond, the aircraft's intercom crackled to life. "Dr. Santos, we're beginning our descent to your research area. Please prepare for arrival." Quote. Maya looked out the window at the dark expanse of the South China Sea below. Somewhere in that darkness was Fiery Cross Reef, where Dr. Chen Wei was probably sleeping peacefully, unaware that his next workday would be his last. Somewhere else was Mischief Island, where Maya would spend the next day preparing for the most challenging shot of her career. And somewhere in the network of intelligence agencies, military commands, and political interests that had arranged this mission, someone was playing a game whose rules Maya didn't fully understand. We're deep into this incredible story now, and I hope you're as captivated as I am by these unfolding events. The amount of effort that goes into researching, writing, and narrating these novel-length stories is immense. We're talking about creating content equivalent to a published book. But it's worth it to bring you stories that truly engage and transport you to another world. If you're enjoying this journey so far, please take a second to like this video and share it with friends who appreciate great storytelling. Your support means everything and helps us continue creating these detailed, epic narratives. We still have so much more to discover together, so let's see how this situation unfolds. As the plane descended toward the coordinates where a small boat would collect her for the final approach to Mischief Island, Maya checked her equipment one last time. The rifle was secure in its custom case, The ammunition was properly stored, and her survival gear was organized for quick access. But most importantly, her mind was focused on the mission ahead. Whatever games were being played in the shadows, whatever intelligence complications were developing, whatever risks Jake suspected but couldn't articulate, none of that mattered once she was in position with the rifle. All that would matter then was wind speed, atmospheric pressure, bullet trajectory, and the steady pressure of her finger on the trigger. Maya Rodriguez had made impossible shots before. Tomorrow, she would find out if she could do it again, when the entire balance of power in the Pacific Ocean hung in the balance. The inflatable boat cut through the pre-dawn swells of the South China Sea with barely a sound, its electric motor designed for stealth operations in contested waters. Maya crouched in the bow, watching Mischief Island emerge from the darkness like a sleeping giant. The island was larger than she'd expected from the satellite imagery, perhaps 800 meters long and 400 meters wide, with rocky cliffs rising 30 meters above the waterline. "That's your home for the next day," said the boat operator, a Navy SEAL whose name Maya hadn't been given. "Drop point is on the eastern shore, where the rocks provide natural concealment for the boat." Maya studied the island's profile through night vision binoculars. The terrain was exactly what she'd hoped for. Rugged enough to provide multiple concealment options, elevated enough to give her a clear line of sight to fiery cross reef, but sparse enough that she could move quickly if extraction became complicated. "Weather forecast is holding steady," the SEAL continued. "Light winds, clear skies, visibility unlimited, perfect conditions for your work." Maya nodded, though she knew that perfect conditions was a relative term when attempting a 6,000-meter shot. Even minor atmospheric variations could spell the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. The boat reached the rocky shore without incident, and Maya transferred her equipment quickly. The rifle case was waterproof and designed for rough handling, but she treated it with the care of someone who understood that her life might depend on its contents. "Pickup is at 1800 tomorrow at these same coordinates," the SEAL said as Maya shouldered her pack. "If you miss the window, backup extraction is 1800 the following day, same location." "Understood." "Good hunting, Doc." Maya watched the boat disappear into the darkness, its electric motor making no sound beyond a faint whir. Then she was alone on Mischief Island, with 24 hours to prepare for the most important shot of her career. Her first priority was reconnaissance. Using night vision equipment, Maya spent 2 hours exploring the island and identifying potential shooting positions. The highest point offered the best line of sight to fiery cross reef, but it was also the most exposed. A position halfway up the northern slope provided good concealment while maintaining adequate elevation. She settled on a spot among a cluster of large rocks that offered natural camouflage and multiple escape routes. The position had clear sight lines to the target area while providing cover from potential helicopter searches. Most importantly, it felt right. The intangible sense of a perfect sniper hide that came from years of experience. Maya spent the next hour preparing the position. She cleared small rocks and debris that might interfere with her shooting stance, identified natural aiming points that would help her establish precise sight pictures, and arranged her equipment for quick access during the mission. The rifle came together like a precision instrument, each component fitting perfectly into place. Maya had trained with this weapon system, but handling it in the field felt different, more serious, more consequential. She mounted the scope carefully, checking the alignment and testing the electronic systems that would provide real-time atmospheric data. As dawn approached, Maya established communication with her support team. The satellite link was clear, and data feeds from weather monitoring stations showed stable conditions across the target area. "Overwatch, this is Longshot," Maya said into her radio. "Position established, equipment functional, beginning target area surveillance." "Copy, Longshot." "All systems show green. Target area remains quiet with normal activity patterns." Maya settled into her hide and began the patient work of observation. Through the advanced scope, fiery cross reef was clearly visible despite the distance. The artificial island looked exactly like the satellite images, a roughly kidney-shaped piece of land with obvious military installations, and the radar complex clearly visible on the highest point. She spent the morning studying the target area, noting guard positions, movement patterns, and routine activities. Dr. Chen Wei appeared twice, both times checking equipment around the radar installation. Maya tracked his movements carefully, building a mental model of his habits and timing. The hardest part was the waiting. Maya had always struggled with the psychological pressure of long-term observation, the way time seemed to stretch when everything depended on patience and precision. She used meditation techniques learned during Army training, focusing on her breathing and maintaining the mental clarity that would be essential during the mission. By midday, Maya had confirmed the intelligence reports about the target area. Security was tight but routine, with guards following predictable patterns. The radar installation appeared to be operating normally, with technicians coming and going on regular schedules. Most importantly, there were no signs that the Chinese suspected any external threat. No additional security measures, no unusual activity, no indication that intelligence about the mission had been compromised. Maya used the afternoon to conduct a complete function check of her equipment. The rifle was performing perfectly, with all electronic systems showing optimal readings. The scope's ballistic computer was integrating atmospheric data smoothly, and the custom ammunition was stored in temperature-controlled conditions. She also rehearsed the mission sequence multiple times, practicing the movements and timing that would be critical during the actual operation. From target acquisition to trigger pull to immediate preparation for the second shot, every action needed to be automatic and precise. As evening approached, Maya allowed herself a brief rest. She ate a high-energy meal and forced herself to sleep for 2 hours, knowing that fatigue could be fatal during precision shooting. The nap was fitful, filled with dreams of wind changes and missed shots, but she woke feeling more alert and focused. The sun set over the South China Sea in a spectacular display of orange and red, painting the water in brilliant colors that would have been beautiful under other circumstances. Maya watched the sunset while conducting final preparations, checking equipment and reviewing the mission profile one last time. During the night, she maintained periodic surveillance of the target area, noting the changes in activity patterns and guard positions. The radar installation remained operational, with work lights illuminating the complex and giving Maya clear views of the areas where she would need to shoot. Dr. Chen Wei appeared once more around midnight, apparently conducting some kind of routine check. Maya watched him through the scope, studying his movements and timing. He was methodical in his work, taking careful measurements and making notes on a tablet. A dedicated professional who had no idea that tomorrow would be his last day. Maya tried not to think about the human aspects of her mission. Dr. Chen had a family, colleagues, probably friends who would mourn his death. But he was also a critical component of a weapons system that could threaten millions of lives. The moral calculus was clear, even if it wasn't easy. As the hours passed toward dawn, Maya felt the familiar pre-mission focus settling over her. The physical world narrowed to immediate tactical requirements: wind speed, atmospheric pressure, sight picture, trigger control. Everything else became background noise, irrelevant to the precision shooting that would soon be required. At 04:00, Maya began her final preparations. She checked the rifle zero one more time, confirmed the scope's electronic systems, and reviewed the atmospheric data that would determine her shooting solution. Conditions remained optimal: light winds, stable pressure, excellent visibility. The mission window would open in 2 hours. When Dr. Chen Wei began the calibration process that would expose him to her shot, Maya settled into her final shooting position, controlling her breathing and heart rate while waiting for the moment when everything would be decided. On the horizon, Fiery Cross Reef sat peacefully in the early morning light, unaware that a sniper was watching from 6 kilometers away. In 90 minutes, Maya would find out if the impossible shot was really possible. But first, she would wait. Because waiting was part of the job, and patience was just another tool in the sniper's arsenal. Maya Rodriguez checked her watch: 04:00 hours. 2 hours until the mission window opened. 2 hours until she would attempt a shot that would either change the balance of power in the Pacific or end her life in failure. She was ready. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying this story, please consider subscribing to our channel. At 05:45, 15 minutes before the mission window opened, Maya began her final preparations. The morning air was crisp and still, with visibility extending to the horizon under clear skies. Through her scope, Fiery Cross Reef looked peaceful in the early dawn light, showing no signs of the momentous events about to unfold. "Overwatch, this is long shot," Maya whispered into her radio, beginning final sequence. Copy, long shot. Target area shows normal activity. Weather conditions remain optimal. Wind speed steady at 3 miles per hour from the southwest. Maya adjusted her scope settings one final time, ensuring that the ballistic computer was receiving real-time atmospheric data. The sophisticated system was calculating bullet trajectory, accounting for wind drift, gravity drop, and even the Coriolis effect that would deflect her shot at this extreme range. She had loaded the rifle with the first of her 2 critical rounds, custom-made .50 BMG ammunition designed specifically for extreme range precision. The bullet weighed 750 grains and was perfectly balanced for ballistic efficiency. Maya's life and the mission's success depended on this single piece of metal and copper. At 0555, movement appeared around the radar installation. Maya tracked several figures through her scope as technicians began preparing for the calibration process. She recognized Dr. Chen Wei immediately, slightly shorter than the others, wearing the distinctive blue jacket she'd seen in intelligence photographs. Target identified, Maya reported. Dr. Chen is approaching the calibration position. Confirmed. Intelligence indicates calibration sequence begins at 0600 sharp. Maya settled into her final shooting position, feeling the rifle's weight distribute evenly across her body. The stock was firmly seated against her shoulder, her grip was consistent and relaxed, and her breathing was controlled and steady. After years of training and 3 years of civilian life, everything came down to the next few minutes. At exactly 0600, Dr. Chen Wei emerged from the radar facility and approached the external array where calibration work would be performed. Maya tracked him through the scope, noting his deliberate, methodical movements. He was carrying a tablet computer and what looked like specialized testing equipment. Target is in position, Maya whispered, beginning ballistic calculation. The scope's computer processed atmospheric data from multiple sensors, calculating the precise adjustments needed for a 6,000-meter shot. Wind speed, air pressure, temperature, humidity. Dozens of variables were analyzed and translated into scope adjustments that would either deliver the bullet precisely on target or send it harmlessly into the ocean. Maya made minute adjustments to her aim point, compensating for the ballistic computer's calculations. At this range, she would need to aim several meters above and to the left of her actual target, trusting physics and technology to guide the bullet to its intended destination. Dr. Chen Wei had begun his work, kneeling beside a large electronic component and connecting testing cables. Maya could see him clearly through the scope, a man focused on his job, unaware that death was watching him from across 6 kilometers of open water. Range to target, 6,247 meters, Maya reported. Ballistic solution calculated. Atmospheric conditions stable. Copy, Longshot. You are authorized to engage. Quote. Maya controlled her breathing, finding the natural pause between heartbeats where her body was completely still. The crosshairs settled on the calculated aim point, several meters above Dr. Chen's position to account for bullet drop over the extreme distance. Time seemed to slow as Maya entered the zone that all expert snipers knew, a state of absolute focus where the entire world narrowed to the relationship between shooter, rifle, and target. Her finger found the trigger's first stage, taking up the slack with practiced precision. Dr. Chen Wei stood up from his calibration work, checking something on his tablet. Maya tracked his movement smoothly, maintaining her sight picture while waiting for him to return to a stationary position. At 6,000 meters, even small movements could result in a miss measured in tens of meters. Wind holding steady, came the voice in her earpiece. Atmospheric pressure stable. Maya felt the familiar stillness settle over her, the moment when everything else ceased to exist except the shot. Her breathing was controlled and even, her heartbeat steady and predictable. The rifle was perfectly stable against the rock formation that served as her shooting rest. Dr. Chen Wei knelt again beside the radar component, returning to his calibration work. Maya centered the crosshairs on her calculated aim point and began the final trigger sequence. At this range, the bullet would take nearly 6 seconds to reach the target, an eternity in tactical terms, but she had planned for target movement and timing. The trigger broke with glass-smooth precision, and the rifle's recoil drove back against Maya's shoulder. Even through her ear protection, the sound was tremendous, a sharp crack that echoed off the rocks and faded across the water. Maya stayed on target through the recoil, watching through the scope for impact. 6 seconds felt like 6 hours. Maya counted the bullet's flight time while tracking any changes in atmospheric conditions that might affect its trajectory. Wind speed remained steady, no sudden gusts or pressure changes that could push the shot off target. At 6.2 seconds after firing, Maya saw the impact through her scope. The bullet struck exactly where she had aimed, center mass on Dr. Chen Wei's torso. The kinetic energy of the .50 BMG round was devastating at any range, and the target dropped immediately. "Target down," Maya reported, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her system. Shifting to secondary target. The radar junction box was positioned 60 meters from Dr. Chen's location, mounted on the exterior of the main radar structure. Maya had studied photographs of the device extensively. A reinforced metal box approximately the size of a briefcase, containing the critical components that coordinated the entire radar system. She worked the rifle's bolt action, chambering her second and final round. The motion was smooth and automatic, practiced thousands of times during training. Maya adjusted her aim point for the new target, accounting for the different range and angle. Through the scope, she could see activity around Dr. Chen's position as other personnel responded to his collapse. Some knelt beside him, others looked around confused. But no one seemed to understand what had happened. The range and angle of the shot made it virtually impossible to determine the direction of attack. "Secondary target acquired," Maya whispered. "Ballistic solution calculated." The junction box was a much smaller target than Dr. Chen, requiring even greater precision. But it was stationary and clearly defined, making target acquisition straightforward. Maya settled her crosshairs on the calculated aim point and began her breathing sequence. "You have approximately 10 minutes before they organize a search," her support team warned. "Chinese patrol boats are beginning to mobilize, but they haven't identified your position yet." Maya blocked out the tactical updates, focusing entirely on the shot. The junction box represented the culmination of months of planning and preparation. Destroying it would disable the radar system, even if the Chinese brought in replacement personnel immediately. The second shot felt different from the first, more urgent, with the pressure of time and discovery adding stress to the precision requirements. But Maya's training took over, and she found the same zone of absolute focus that had made the first shot possible. The trigger broke cleanly, and Maya watched the second bullet's flight through her scope. At 6.1 seconds after firing, the round impacted the junction box with devastating effect. The device exploded in a shower of sparks and debris, clearly destroyed beyond any possibility of repair. "Secondary target destroyed," Maya reported. "Both objectives complete." Through her scope, Maya could see the immediate effects of her shots. The radar array had gone dark, its displays no longer showing the characteristic patterns of active scanning. Personnel were running between positions, some attending to Dr. Chen while others examined the destroyed junction box. More importantly, no one was looking in her direction. The extreme range and careful positioning had worked perfectly. The Chinese forces had no idea where the shots had originated. "Excellent work, Longshot," came the voice in her earpiece. "Begin evasion sequence immediately. Chinese reaction forces are mobilizing faster than anticipated." Maya began breaking down her position with practiced efficiency. The rifle was disassembled and secured in its case within 2 minutes, and her other equipment was packed for rapid movement. She left no trace of her presence, no spent brass, no equipment, nothing that could indicate where the shots had come from. As she prepared to move to her primary concealment position, Maya heard the distinctive sound of helicopters in the distance. The Chinese response was indeed faster than intelligence had predicted, but she had planned for this contingency. The concealment position was a natural cave formation on the island's southern slope, hidden from aerial observation and accessible through multiple routes. Maya reached it within 10 minutes of firing her second shot, well before the first helicopters arrived over the target area. From her hidden position, Maya could observe the Chinese search efforts while remaining completely concealed. Helicopters circled the area, but they were concentrating their search around Fiery Cross Reef and the waters immediately adjacent to the radar installation. The idea that someone could have made the shots from Mischief Island was apparently beyond their tactical calculations. "Overwatch, this is Longshot," Maya whispered into her radio. "In primary concealment, Chinese search pattern is focused on incorrect areas." "Copy, Longshot. Maintain concealment until extraction." Chinese forces are deploying to multiple islands, but Mischief Island is low priority in their search pattern. Maya settled into her hide for the long wait until extraction. 12 hours until the submarine pickup. 12 hours of remaining invisible, while Chinese forces searched for a sniper who had made an impossible shot. But as she monitored the radio traffic and watched the search efforts through her binoculars, Maya felt a satisfaction she hadn't experienced in 3 years. The mission was complete, both objectives achieved with precision that would have seemed impossible to anyone who hadn't made similar shots before. Dr. Chenwei was dead, eliminating the only person on Fiery Cross Reef who fully understood the radar system's operation. The critical junction box was destroyed, ensuring that even if the Chinese brought in replacement personnel, the radar would remain inoperative for weeks or months. Most importantly, the shots had been executed without revealing their source. As far as the Chinese knew, they had suffered equipment failure and a tragic accident. There was no evidence of external attack, no indication that American forces had been involved. Maya checked her watch, 0615 hours. The entire engagement had lasted less than 15 minutes, but it had potentially shifted the balance of power in the South China Sea for months to come. Now all she had to do was survive the next 12 hours without being discovered. Maya Rodriguez settled deeper into her concealment, listening to the helicopters circling in the distance and watching patrol boats crisscross the waters around Fiery Cross Reef. The impossible shot had been made, the mission was complete, and she was still alive. For the first time since she'd been recruited for this operation, Maya allowed herself to believe that she might actually make it home. 3 hours after the shots, Maya's confidence began to erode. The Chinese search pattern had evolved from the random confusion she'd initially observed to something more systematic and concerning. Through her binoculars, she watched patrol boats establishing a grid search of the surrounding waters, while helicopters expanded their coverage to include islands that had been ignored during the initial response. "Overwatch, this is Longshot," Maya whispered into her radio. "Chinese search pattern is becoming more organized. They're expanding coverage to secondary islands." The response came back with concerning static interference. "Copy, shot, maintain, until..." Maya adjusted her radio, trying to clear the communication problems. "Overwatch, you're breaking up. Please repeat." Nothing but static. Either atmospheric conditions were interfering with satellite communications, or something was actively jamming her radio signals. Neither possibility was encouraging. Maya tried different frequencies and communication protocols, but the interference remained consistent across all channels. She was effectively cut off from her support team, alone on Mischief Island with Chinese forces systematically expanding their search efforts. Through her binoculars, Maya could see a patrol boat approaching the waters around Mischief Island. The vessel was still several kilometers away, but its course suggested it would reach the island within 30 minutes. If the boat carried search teams, Maya's concealment position might not remain secure. She made a tactical decision to relocate to her secondary hide, a position on the island's western slope that offered better concealment from maritime approaches. The movement was risky. Any motion could be detected by aerial surveillance, but staying in a compromised position was worse. Maya moved carefully through the rocky terrain, using natural cover to mask her progress. The secondary position was less comfortable than her primary hide, but it offered multiple escape routes and better protection from observation. She settled into the new location just as the patrol boat reached Mischief Island's waters. Through her binoculars, Maya watched the Chinese vessel circle the island slowly, using powerful searchlights to examine the shoreline despite the daylight conditions. The search was methodical and professional. These weren't random patrol activities, but deliberate investigation of potential sniper positions. Her radio crackled briefly, and Maya caught fragments of transmission. Compromise, extraction, alternative. The communication was too broken to understand completely, but the tone suggested that something had gone wrong with the mission plan. Maya tried responding, but her transmissions seemed to be absorbed by the same interference that was blocking incoming signals. The patrol boat completed its circuit of the island and began deploying what looked like a landing party. Maya counted 8 figures in military gear, armed and equipped for search operations. They divided into 2 teams, one moving toward the island's northern slope while the other approached from the southeast. Maya assessed her options rapidly. The island was large enough that a thorough search would take hours, giving her opportunities to evade detection. But the search teams looked professional and well-equipped. Avoiding them would require careful movement and perfect timing. She decided to stay in her current position for as long as possible, only moving if directly threatened. The western slope position offered good concealment and observation capabilities, allowing her to track the search team's progress while remaining hidden. The northern search team moved efficiently through the terrain, checking potential hiding spots and sniper positions with the thoroughness of people who understood what they were looking for. Maya realized that these weren't ordinary sailors. They were special operations troops, probably with counter-sniper training. More concerning was their search pattern. Instead of the random sweeps she'd expected, they were moving systematically through areas that offered good shooting positions overlooking Fiery Cross Reef. Someone had analyzed the mission requirements and identified the likely locations for a sniper hide. Maya's radio suddenly burst to life with clear signal. "Longshot, this is alternate overwatch. Do you copy?" "Copy, alternate overwatch. Primary communications have been compromised." "Understood. Mission intelligence indicates your position may be compromised. Chinese forces have deployed specialized search teams to multiple islands. Extraction timeline is accelerated." Maya felt a mixture of relief and concern. Relief that communication was restored. Concern about the implications of accelerated extraction. "What's the new timeline?" "Extraction in 4 hours at alternate coordinates. Sending data now." Maya's secure tablet displayed new information. Extraction coordinates on the island's western shore, significantly different from the original plan. The change made tactical sense given the current search activities, but it also meant crossing terrain that might be actively patrolled. "Copy alternate extraction. What about Chinese search teams currently on island?" "Intelligence suggests they have thermal imaging and motion detection equipment. Recommend minimal movement until extraction window." Maya absorbed this information while watching the search teams through her binoculars. Thermal imaging would make concealment much more difficult, especially if the teams were systematic about covering the island's terrain. The southern search team was working its way up the slope toward her general area. Maya estimated they would reach her vicinity within 2 hours, well before the extraction window opened. She would need to move, despite the risks. But as she prepared to relocate again, Maya noticed something that made her freeze. One of the search team members was using hand signals that looked familiar. Not Chinese military signals, but something else. American Special Operations hand signals. Maya focused her binoculars on the figure more carefully. Caucasian features, equipment that looked more American than Chinese, movement patterns that suggested different training than the other team members. "Alternate overwatch, this is Longshot. I'm observing what appears to be American personnel integrated with Chinese search teams." There was a long pause before the response came. "Say again, Longshot." "One member of the southern search team appears to be American. Caucasian male, using American tactical signals, equipment inconsistent with Chinese standard." Another pause, longer this time. "Longshot, you are ordered to maintain concealment and avoid all contact with search teams, regardless of their apparent nationality." The tone of the response troubled Maya. Instead of surprise or concern about American personnel working with Chinese forces, her handlers seemed to expect this information. "Alternate overwatch, please clarify the nature of American involvement in Chinese search operations." "That information is classified above your clearance level. Focus on survival and extraction." Maya lowered her binoculars, her mind racing through the implications. American personnel working with Chinese forces suggested coordination at levels far above tactical cooperation. Either the mission had been compromised from the beginning, or there were aspects of the operation that she hadn't been briefed about. The southern search team was now within 200 meters of her position, moving carefully through the rocky terrain. Maya could hear voices, Chinese commands mixed with what sounded like English responses. The American was definitely integrated with the team, not just observing or advising. Maya made a decision that went against her orders. Instead of maintaining concealment, she decided to get closer to the search team and gather intelligence about their mission. If Americans were involved in hunting her, she needed to understand why. Moving carefully through natural cover, Maya worked her way to within 50 meters of the search team's position. From there, she could hear conversations clearly enough to understand their purpose. Thermal imaging shows no recent heat signatures in this sector, said a voice with an American accent. But the shooting position calculations suggest someone was definitely operating from this general area. How certain are the ballistic projections? Asked another voice in accented English. Very certain. The trajectory analysis indicates the shots came from somewhere within a 200-meter radius of this location. If she's still on the island, we'll find her. Maya felt ice in her veins. They weren't just searching randomly, they had calculated her position based on ballistic analysis of her shots. And they knew she was female, suggesting intelligence that went beyond tactical deduction. What are the orders when we locate her? Asked the Chinese voice. Capture if possible, eliminate if necessary. But the priority is ensuring she doesn't reach extraction. Maya moved away from the search team, her mind processing the tactical situation. Someone had provided the Chinese with detailed information about her mission, including ballistic calculations that would reveal her position and intelligence about her extraction plans. The mission hadn't just been compromised, it had been betrayed from the inside. Maya keyed her radio carefully, using a coded frequency that would be harder to intercept. Alternate overwatch. This is Longshot. I have information suggesting mission compromise at operational level. The response came back immediately, but with a different voice than before. Longshot, this is actual overwatch. Previous communications were not from friendly sources. Your position is compromised and extraction is impossible through normal channels. Maya felt the bottom drop out of her tactical situation. If the previous communications had been false, then the accelerated extraction timeline was probably designed to lead her into a trap. The Chinese search teams weren't just looking for her. They were herding her toward a specific location. Actual overwatch. What are my options? Survival and evasion until we can establish alternative extraction. Estimated timeline 18 to 24 hours. Chinese forces are receiving outside intelligence support. Trust no communications unless verified through code word authentication. Understood. What's the current authentication protocol? Bravo 7 Whiskey. Any communications without that code word are hostile. Maya acknowledged the new protocol while assessing her situation. The original 12-hour survival requirement had just become a potentially multi-day evasion scenario, with hostile forces that included American personnel and sophisticated intelligence support. But as she planned her next moves, Maya realized something that gave her a tactical advantage. If the mission had been betrayed, then someone wanted her captured or killed for reasons beyond just operational security. That meant she possessed information or capabilities that were valuable enough to justify this level of effort. Whatever game was being played around her mission, Maya Rodriguez had just become a player instead of just a piece. And players had options that pieces didn't. Maya spent the next hour conducting counter-surveillance on the search teams while working her way toward the island's northern shore. The terrain was challenging. Rocky outcroppings and sparse vegetation that provided cover but required careful movement to avoid detection by thermal imaging equipment. Through careful observation, she'd identified the American working with the Chinese forces. Tall, athletic build, moving with the confidence of someone accustomed to special operations work. His equipment was sophisticated. Military-grade thermal imaging, encrypted communications, and what appeared to be real-time intelligence updates. Most disturbing was his obvious familiarity with her mission parameters. He was directing the Chinese teams to specific locations based on detailed knowledge of sniper hide requirements and extraction protocols. This wasn't someone who had been briefed recently. This was someone who had been involved in mission planning from the beginning. Maya's radio crackled with the authentication protocol she'd been given. Longshot, this is actual overwatch, Bravo 7 Whiskey. Situation update. Copy. Actual overwatch. Go ahead. Chinese search efforts are being coordinated through compromised intelligence channels. The individual you identified is believed to be a former American Special Operations officer working as a contractor for Chinese intelligence services. Maya absorbed this information while maintaining visual surveillance of the search teams. How long has he been compromised? Unknown, but potentially months or years. This suggests your mission may have been anticipated and prepared for well in advance. The implications were staggering. If Chinese intelligence had known about the mission for months, they could have prepared countermeasures, developed response protocols, and potentially fed false information back through American intelligence channels. Actual overwatch. Was the mission itself compromised from the beginning? There was a long pause before the response. Classified. Focus on survival and evasion. Maya recognized the tone, bureaucratic deflection that usually meant the answer was yes but couldn't be officially acknowledged. Someone in the American intelligence community had known the mission was compromised, but had proceeded anyway. She was expendable. The mission had been designed to fail, with her death or capture serving some larger strategic purpose she couldn't understand. Maya keyed her radio again. Actual Overwatch, I need to understand the full tactical situation. If this mission was expected to fail, what was the real objective? Long shot. Maintain communication discipline. Your survival is the current priority. But Maya was past accepting evasive answers. She'd made impossible shots, completed her mission objectives, and was now being hunted by people who should have been on her side. Someone owed her an explanation. Actual Overwatch. I'm requesting immediate contact with Captain Martinez. Authentication protocols indicate you have the authority to patch that communication. Another long pause. Captain Martinez is unavailable. Continue evasion protocols. Maya's tactical training told her to follow orders and focus on survival, but her instincts told her that following orders had gotten her into this situation in the first place. She made a decision that violated every protocol she'd been taught. Instead of evading the search teams, she was going to capture intelligence from them. The American operative had separated from his Chinese teammates, moving to a position where he could coordinate search efforts through encrypted communications. Maya worked her way to within 30 meters of his position, close enough to observe his activities and potentially intercept communications. Through her binoculars, she could see him using a sophisticated communication system that definitely wasn't standard Chinese military equipment. The antenna configuration and display characteristics suggested American-made intelligence gear, possibly the same type of system her own handlers were using. Maya activated a recording function on her equipment and focused a directional microphone toward the operative's position. If she could capture intelligence about the broader operation, she might understand what was really happening. Control, this is Asset 7, she heard through the audio pickup. Target area search is proceeding on schedule. No contact with primary subject yet, but thermal tracking indicates recent activity in grid squares 4 and 7. The voice was clearly American, but he was reporting to someone designated as, quote, control rather than using Chinese communication protocols. Maya wondered if he was actually working for Chinese intelligence or for some other organization entirely. Understood, Asset 7. What's the status on alternate extraction interdiction? Maritime units are in position to intercept any submarine extraction attempts. Air assets are standing by for immediate deployment if the subject attempts to signal for pickup. Maya felt cold certainty settle over her. Not only was her current position compromised, but her extraction routes were blocked as well. Someone had planned this operation to ensure she couldn't escape regardless of how successfully she completed the mission. Control, requesting clarification on endgame protocols. Are we maintaining the capture priority, or has the situation evolved? Capture remains primary objective. The subject possesses information that could compromise additional operations. If capture is not feasible, elimination is authorized. Maya lowered the directional microphone, having heard enough to understand her situation. She wasn't just being hunted. She was being systematically trapped by people who knew exactly how she would try to escape. But the communication had also revealed something important. They wanted her alive because she, quote, possessed information that could compromise additional operations. Maya tried to understand what information that might be. Her mind worked through the possibilities. Details about the rifle and ammunition technology. Intelligence about the mission planning process. Knowledge of the personnel involved in arranging the operation. Or perhaps something she'd observed but hadn't recognized as significant. Maya's radio crackled again, but this time with a different authentication protocol. Longshot, this is Emergency Overwatch, Authentication Charlie 9 X-ray, immediate action required. Maya hesitated. The new authentication code was different from what she'd been given earlier, but the communication pattern suggested urgency that might be legitimate. Emergency Overwatch, this is Longshot, verify authentication through alternate channel. Longshot, authentication verified. Captain Martinez sends personal message. Afghanistan coordinates were not the only record. Do you understand? Maya's blood ran cold. The Afghanistan coordinates were her tattoo, the numbers that had started this entire sequence of events. But Martinez was referencing not the only record, suggesting there were other records of her shot that she didn't know about. Emergency Overwatch. Explain reference to additional records. Longshot. Your Afghanistan mission was recorded by multiple intelligence assets. Video, audio, biometric data. Complete documentation exists of your capabilities and methods. This information has been compromised. Maya understood the implications immediately. If complete records of her Afghanistan shot existed, including detailed analysis of her techniques and capabilities, then enemy intelligence services could study her methods and develop countermeasures. She wasn't just a valuable asset, she was a walking security breach. Emergency Overwatch. What are my instructions? Extraction is no longer possible through normal channels. You need to reach alternate coordinates for emergency pickup. Sending location data now. Maya's tablet displayed new coordinates on the opposite side of the island from both her current position and the original extraction point. The route would require crossing terrain currently occupied by search teams, but it might be possible with careful timing. Emergency Overwatch. How do I know this communication is legitimate? Captain Martinez sends second authentication. You asked her if the Afghanistan shot was worth it. She told you it saved 200 lives. You never reported that conversation through official channels. Maya felt a mixture of relief and continued suspicion. The information was accurate, but in the world of intelligence operations, accurate information could come from surveillance as easily as from legitimate sources. She made a tactical decision to move toward the new coordinates while maintaining skepticism about the communication's authenticity. If the coordinates led to a trap, she would need to be prepared for combat. If they led to legitimate extraction, she needed to reach them before the search teams blocked all movement on the island. Maya began working her way across the island's rocky terrain, using natural cover and careful timing to avoid the search teams. The route was challenging, requiring her to cross areas with limited concealment while carrying equipment that made rapid movement difficult. As she moved, Maya's mind continued processing the intelligence she'd gathered. Someone had planned this mission, knowing it would likely fail. American personnel were working with Chinese forces to capture or kill her. Her extraction routes were compromised, and her capabilities were documented in ways that made her a security risk. But she was still alive, still armed, and still capable of making decisions that could affect the outcome. Maya Rodriguez had survived 3 years of civilian life, completed an impossible mission, and evaded capture by sophisticated opposition forces. Whatever game was being played around her, she intended to survive it. And maybe, if she was careful and lucky, she might even figure out who had betrayed her and why. The emergency extraction coordinates led Maya to a section of Mischief Island she hadn't explored during her initial reconnaissance. The terrain was more rugged here, with rocky outcroppings that created natural caves and hidden passages. As she approached the specified location, Maya noticed something that made her pause: recent human activity in an area that should have been uninhabited. Tool marks on rocks, cleared pathways, and what looked like concealed equipment caches suggested that someone had been preparing this site for operational use. Maya approached carefully, every instinct warning her that this could be an elaborate trap. Emergency Overwatch. This is Longshot approaching coordinates. Area shows signs of recent preparation and human activity. Copy, Longshot. Proceed to exact coordinates. You'll find additional instructions there. Maya reached the specified location and discovered a carefully concealed entrance to what appeared to be an underground facility. The opening was hidden among natural rock formations, but the construction was clearly artificial. Someone had invested significant time and resources in creating this hidden position. Inside the entrance, Maya found a waterproof container with written instructions and additional equipment. The message was handwritten on paper. No electronic communications that could be intercepted or jammed. Maya, if you're reading this, the mission has been compromised as we expected. This facility was prepared as a contingency. You'll find everything you need for extended survival and alternative extraction. Trust no electronic communications from this point forward. SM. The initials matched Captain Martinez, and the handwriting looked consistent with official documents Maya had seen before. But in the current environment of deception and betrayal, she couldn't be certain of anything. Maya explored the underground facility carefully, weapon ready for immediate use. The space was larger than she'd expected. Multiple chambers carved from natural rock formations and reinforced with modern construction materials. Someone had clearly spent months preparing this location. She found supplies, equipment, and most importantly, an alternative communication system that appeared to be independent of the compromised networks she'd been using. But before trusting any of it, Maya conducted a thorough security sweep to ensure the facility wasn't under surveillance. The underground shelter was clean, no electronic monitoring devices, no signs of recent intrusion, no indications that hostile forces knew about its existence. Either this was the most sophisticated trap ever constructed, or it was genuine emergency preparation by people who had anticipated mission compromise. Maya activated the alternative communication system, which immediately displayed a message waiting for her arrival. Long shot. If you're reading this, proceed to communication chamber and activate secure link. Authentication. Afghanistan shot was 4,247 meters, not the 4,200 publicly reported. Details matter when lives depend on precision. Actual Overwatch. The specific detail about her record shot was something that wouldn't be in official reports. The publicly acknowledged distance was rounded to 4,200 meters, but Maya's actual measured distance had been 4,247 meters. Only someone with access to her personal debriefing reports would know that detail. Maya proceeded to the communication chamber and activated the secure link. A voice came through immediately. Captain Martinez, unmistakably, without the electronic distortion that had characterized other communications. Maya, thank God you made it to the facility. Captain Martinez, how do I know this communication is secure? Quote, because this facility and communication system were built specifically for this contingency. Maya, I need you to understand something. Your mission was genuine, but we suspected from the beginning that it had been compromised by hostile intelligence services. Maya felt a mixture of relief and anger. You sent me on a mission you knew was compromised? We sent you on a mission that we needed to complete despite the compromise. The radar installation had to be destroyed, and you were the only person capable of making that shot. But we also prepared contingencies for your survival when things went wrong. What about the Chinese search teams, the American operative working with them? The American is a former CIA contractor named David Reeves. He's been selling intelligence to Chinese services for at least 2 years. We've been feeding him false information while building a case against him, but your mission forced us to accelerate our timeline. Maya absorbed this information while monitoring the facility's security systems. What's my status now? Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. Officially, you're missing in action, presumed dead. The Chinese think they're hunting a ghost, and Reeves thinks he's tracking intelligence that we've allowed him to steal. Unofficially, you're in a facility that doesn't exist, using communication systems that aren't in any database. What about extraction? That's complicated. The original extraction was designed to fail. We needed Reeves to believe his intelligence was accurate. But this facility has alternative options that he doesn't know about. Maya studied the communication chamber more carefully, noting sophisticated equipment that looked like it could support multiple types of operations. How long has this facility existed? 6 months. We built it when we first suspected Reeves was compromised. The mission planning was real, but we prepared for the possibility that everything would go wrong. Captain, I need to understand something. You said I possessed information that could compromise additional operations. What information? There was a pause before Martinez responded. Maya, your Afghanistan mission was more significant than you were told at the time. That shot didn't just eliminate a Taliban commander. It prevented a coordinated attack on multiple coalition bases that would have killed hundreds of soldiers and civilians. You told me that before. What I didn't tell you is that the intelligence about that attack came from sources we're still protecting. Your mission validated intelligence methods that we're using in current operations. If enemy services could analyze your techniques and connect them to our intelligence sources, it could compromise ongoing operations that protect thousands of lives. Maya began to understand the scope of what was happening. Her individual capabilities were less important than the intelligence methods and sources that her mission had validated. She was valuable not just as a sniper, but as a walking confirmation of intelligence techniques that were still being used. What do you need me to do? Survive until we can extract you through channels that Reeves doesn't know about. Continue to let the Chinese think you're just a sniper who made lucky shots. And help us gather intelligence about Reeves's network so we can shut down his operation permanently. Maya looked around the underground facility, considering her options. She could trust Martinez and work within this new operational framework. Or she could try to extract herself independently and hope to disappear permanently. But as she thought about the implications of compromised intelligence sources and ongoing operations that depended on secrecy, Maya realized that her personal preferences were less important than the larger mission. What's the plan? First, we need you to feed false information back through the compromised channels. Make Reeves think you're injured and hiding in a different part of the island. While Chinese forces search the wrong areas, we'll gather intelligence about his communication methods and financial connections. How long? 48 hours maximum. Then we extract you through a method that Reeves has never seen before, and you disappear permanently with a new identity and resources for a completely independent life. Maya considered the proposal, 48 more hours of survival and deception, in exchange for genuine freedom and the chance to stop a compromised agent who was endangering American lives. I'll do it, but Captain, I want one guarantee. What's that? When this is over, I want to be done. No more missions, no more surveillance, no more being a valuable asset that someone might need again. I want to disappear completely and stay disappeared. You have my word, Maya. Help us finish this, and you'll get the civilian life you should have had 3 years ago. Maya activated the facility's operational systems, preparing for 48 hours of the most dangerous game of her career. She would need to deceive sophisticated intelligence professionals while gathering information that could stop a traitor and protect ongoing operations. But as she began planning her next moves, Maya realized that for the first time since this mission began, she understood the stakes and trusted the people giving her orders. That made all the difference in the world. Maya spent the first 6 hours in the underground facility studying the intelligence files that Martinez had provided about David Reeves and his network. The former CIA contractor had been selling American secrets for at least 2 years, providing Chinese intelligence with information about ongoing operations, personnel identities, and tactical methods. Most disturbing was the scope of his access. Reeves had worked on dozens of classified operations, giving him knowledge that could compromise agents and sources worldwide. Maya's mission had been one small part of a much larger counterintelligence operation, designed to identify and neutralize his network. The key, Martinez explained, through the secure communication system, is making Reeves believe his intelligence about you is accurate, while feeding him false information about your capabilities and location. Maya studied the tactical requirements. She would need to create evidence of her presence in locations where she wasn't hiding, communicate false information through channels that Reeves was monitoring, and maintain the illusion that she was a wounded sniper desperately trying to escape. What specific intelligence do you want me to feed him? We want him to believe you're hiding in the island's eastern caves, that you're injured from the Chinese search efforts, and that you're planning to signal for extraction tonight at coordinates we'll provide. Maya understood the strategy. If Reeves directed Chinese forces to the wrong location for her extraction attempt, it would confirm his role as their intelligence source, while giving American forces the opportunity to observe his communication methods. How do I plant the false information? Quote, use the compromised radio channels that Reeves has been monitoring. Make it look like you're trying to be stealthy but failing due to injury and stress. Professional tradecraft that's just imperfect enough to seem authentic. Maya activated the compromised communication equipment and began transmitting false information. She had to make the communications seem genuine, desperate but competent, professional but affected by stress and injury. Any station, this is Longshot requesting emergency medical extraction, Maya transmitted on the compromised frequency. She added what sounded like labored breathing and background noise to suggest injury and stress. Have sustained injuries during evasion, position compromised. Requesting immediate pickup at grid reference 77 Delta. She waited 10 minutes, then transmitted again with increasing desperation in her voice. Extraction request urgent. Chinese forces closing on position. Will attempt to reach alternate coordinates if no response received. Through the facility's monitoring equipment, Maya could track the immediate response to her transmissions. Radio traffic spiked among Chinese forces, and she could see movement patterns shifting toward the false coordinates she'd provided. He's taking the bait, Martinez confirmed through the secure channel, Chinese forces are redeploying based on your transmissions. We're also seeing encrypted communications from Reeves to handlers we hadn't identified before. Maya continued the deception over the next 12 hours, gradually moving across the island through a series of transmissions that painted a picture of a wounded sniper trying to reach extraction while being pursued by increasingly organized search efforts. Each transmission provided slightly more desperate intelligence about her condition and location. The most challenging part was maintaining the psychological authenticity of someone under extreme stress while actually being safe in an underground facility. Maya had to draw on memories of real combat situations, remembering the exhaustion, fear, and desperation that came with being hunted by professional soldiers. By the second day, the Chinese search efforts had concentrated almost entirely on the eastern side of the island, leaving Maya's actual location completely unmonitored. More importantly, American intelligence was mapping Reeves's entire communication network based on his responses to the false information. "We've identified at least 12 other compromised operations," Martinez reported. "Reeves has been providing intelligence that's gotten American agents killed and missions compromised across 3 continents." Maya felt satisfaction at contributing to the counterintelligence operation, but also urgency about her own situation. Maintaining the deception was psychologically exhausting, and she was eager to complete her role and disappear permanently. What's the endgame timeline? 18 hours. We're preparing to close the net on Reeves's entire network simultaneously. When that happens, Chinese forces will realize they've been chasing false intelligence, but you'll already be extracted. What's the extraction method? Something Reeves has never seen before, which means Chinese intelligence won't have countermeasures prepared. Maya spent the final hours reviewing escape routes and preparing her equipment for rapid departure. The underground facility had provided everything she needed to survive, but she was ready to leave the deception behind and begin the next phase of her life. As the extraction time approached, Maya reflected on the complete mission. She'd made impossible shots under perfect conditions, survived sophisticated counter-sniper operations, and helped expose a traitorous network that was endangering American lives worldwide. The scared woman mopping floors at Fort Bragg felt like a different person entirely. But she was also ready to be done with this world. The adrenaline and purpose were intoxicating, but the cost in human terms was too high. Maya wanted the quiet civilian life that had been promised to her, with the knowledge that her final mission had actually made a difference. "Long shot, this is actual Overwatch," came Martinez's voice. "Extraction team is moving to position. Prepare for final departure in 30 minutes. Maya gathered her personal equipment, leaving behind the specialized gear that had defined her military identity. The custom rifle, the advanced optics, the sophisticated communication systems, all of it would remain in the facility for the next sniper who might need an impossible sanctuary. But as she prepared to leave, Maya realized she would carry something with her that couldn't be left behind. The knowledge that when everything depended on perfect execution under impossible conditions, she had delivered. Maya Rodriguez had made her last shot as a military sniper, but the woman who emerged from that underground facility was someone who understood her own capabilities and the price of using them. The extraction would begin a new life, but it would also end the career of the most accurate long-range shooter in military history. We're approaching the climactic moments of this epic tale, and the tension is at its peak. Creating stories of this scope and detail requires not just writing talent, but careful plotting, character development, and attention to every narrative thread. We've journeyed through nearly 40,000 words together, and I hope every moment has kept you engaged. If this story has drawn you in and kept you listening, please show your appreciation by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Share this epic with anyone who loves immersive storytelling, and hit that notification bell for more incredible adventures. Now, let's witness how everything comes together in these final, crucial moments. The extraction came at dawn, with mist rising from the South China Sea and Chinese patrol boats still searching the wrong side of Mischief Island. Maya had spent the night monitoring communications, watching David Reeves' direct search efforts based on her carefully planted false intelligence, while American forces quietly surrounded his entire network. "Longshot extraction team is on station," Martinez's voice came through the secure communication system. "Proceed to surface coordinates for pickup." Maya emerged from the underground facility for the first time in 36 hours, carrying only personal equipment and leaving behind all trace of her presence. The morning air felt clean and cold after the recycled atmosphere of the hidden sanctuary. The extraction method was unlike anything Maya had experienced before. Instead of a traditional submarine or helicopter pickup, a small submersible drone surfaced 50 meters offshore, nearly invisible against the dark water. The device was just large enough for one person and completely automated. No crew to compromise if the operation was discovered. Maya waded into the surf and climbed into the submersible's cramped but well-equipped passenger compartment. As the drone sealed itself and began submerging, she watched Mischief Island disappear above her through a small porthole. The place where she'd made impossible shots and survived sophisticated manhunts was now just another piece of South China Sea geography. The submersible's journey took 3 hours, traveling underwater to rendezvous coordinates where a larger vessel waited. During the transit, Maya received updates about the broader operation through the drone's communication system. Reeves and 17 associates have been arrested simultaneously across 4 countries, Martinez reported. Chinese intelligence has lost their primary source of American operational intelligence. The network you helped expose was responsible for compromising at least 30 operations over 2 years. Maya felt satisfaction at the mission's success, but also exhaustion that went beyond physical fatigue. The psychological strain of living multiple deceptions while maintaining operational effectiveness had taken its toll. The submersible surfaced alongside what appeared to be a civilian research vessel, but Maya recognized the subtle modifications that indicated military purpose. She was transferred quickly and efficiently, with no ceremony or acknowledgement of the mission's historic significance. "Welcome aboard, Dr. Santos," said a woman in civilian clothes who was obviously military intelligence. "Your research expedition was highly successful." Maya understood that her marine biologist cover identity would be maintained until they reached secure facilities. But she also noticed something else. The woman had used her cover name with genuine respect, not the casual dismissal that often characterized how intelligence personnel treated expendable assets. During the voyage back to American waters, Maya received her final mission debriefing from Captain Martinez via secure video link. The conversation took place in a small but well-appointed cabin that felt more like a hotel room than military accommodation. "Maya, I want you to understand the full scope of what you accomplished," Martinez began. "Your shots disabled Chinese radar capabilities that could have threatened our allies for years. But equally important, your survival and the intelligence we gathered through Reeves's attempts to capture you have protected American operations worldwide. What happens to Reeves? He'll face trial for treason and espionage. His network has been completely rolled up, and Chinese intelligence has lost years of intelligence development. The damage he caused was extensive, but it's now contained." Maya nodded, understanding the larger implications. "And my status?" Quote, "As promised, you'll receive a complete new identity with resources for a fully independent civilian life. No more surveillance. No more being kept in reserve for future missions. You'll be free to disappear as completely as you choose." "What about the records of my capabilities, the documentation that made me a security risk?" Martinez smiled for the first time during their conversation. "Those records will be classified at levels that ensure they never see daylight again. Officially, the Afghanistan shot was made by someone who died in that convoy attack. The South China Sea mission was conducted by assets who don't exist. Maya Rodriguez, the sniper, is being erased from all databases." Maya felt a weight lifting that she hadn't realized she'd been carrying for 3 years. The fear of discovery, the constant awareness that someone might be watching, the knowledge that her skills made her valuable to people who didn't care about her personal wishes, all of that was finally ending. "There's one more thing," Martinez continued. "The president wanted me to express his personal gratitude for your service. You'll never receive public recognition for what you've done, but the highest levels of government understand the significance of your contributions." Maya appreciated the sentiment, but she was more interested in practical matters. "When do I receive my new identity?" "Upon arrival at the debriefing facility. Complete documentation, financial resources, and relocation support. You'll have everything you need to build whatever kind of life you want." The conversation concluded with administrative details about her transition to civilian life. Maya would spend 3 days in debriefing, receive her new identity documentation, and then disappear into whatever life she chose to create. But as the ship approached American waters, Maya found herself thinking about the future in ways she hadn't for years. For the first time since Afghanistan, she could make choices based on what she wanted, rather than what was tactically necessary or strategically required. She thought about college, maybe finishing the degree she'd abandoned when she enlisted, about travel to places where she wouldn't be hunting or hiding, about relationships with people who would never know what she'd done or what she was capable of doing. Most of all, she thought about the possibility of finding peace with the choices she'd made. The shots that had saved lives, the missions that had protected innocent people, the sacrifices that had served purposes larger than herself. Maya Rodriguez, the sniper, had completed her final mission. The woman who would emerge from debriefing would be free to discover who she might become when violence was no longer required. As the ship entered port under a clear morning sky, Maya prepared for the last transition of her military career, from warrior back to civilian, from asset back to person, from sniper back to whatever she chose to be. The longest shot of her career wasn't the 4,247-meter elimination in Afghanistan or the 6,000-meter double kill in the South China Sea. The longest shot was the distance between who she'd been forced to become and who she might choose to be. What an absolutely incredible journey we've shared together. A full 50,000 words of adventure, character growth, and storytelling. Creating stories of this scope and detail takes tremendous time and effort to bring you the most engaging content possible. If this epic story moved you, inspired you, or simply entertained you through this incredible journey, please show your appreciation by liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more amazing long-form stories. Share this with anyone who loves compelling narratives and has the patience for truly epic storytelling. Hit that notification bell to be the first to hear our newest content. Thank you for being part of our storytelling community and for joining me on this remarkable adventure. I'll see you in the next incredible tale. D back in his chair. What if I told you we could give you everything you need? Real-time meteorological data, satellite tracking of atmospheric conditions, and a shooting position that's been prepared specifically for this mission? I'd say you're either lying or you've been planning this for a lot longer than the last few hours. 6 months, Jake admitted. We've been preparing for this contingency since the radar installation began. The only thing we were missing was a shooter capable of making the shot. Maya felt the pieces clicking into place. You've been looking for me. We've been looking for someone with your specific skill set. The fact that it turned out to be you specifically was serendipitous. Lucky coincidence that I happened to be mopping the floor when you needed to grab something from the equipment locker. Quote, Jake's expression didn't change, but Maya caught the slight tightening around his eyes. I may have been notified that an individual matching certain criteria had been working at this facility. By who? That's classified above my pay grade. But someone's been keeping track of you, Maya. Someone who thought you might be needed again someday. Maya stood and walked to the satellite image, studying the details more closely. The shooting position on Mischief Island appeared to be a natural rock formation, but she could see subtle modifications, cleared fields of fire, what looked like prepared concealment positions. Show me the ballistic calculations. Jake typed commands into a laptop and new data filled the screen. Wind speed predictions, atmospheric pressure models, even predicted solar radiation effects on bullet trajectory. It was the most comprehensive ballistic profile Maya had ever seen for a shot this complex. Who put this together? A team of physicists from MIT using modeling software developed for space launches. They've been running simulations for months. Maya absorbed the data, her mind automatically translating numbers into practical shooting solutions. The margins for error were impossibly small. Wind speed changes of even 5 miles per hour could push the bullet dozens of meters off target at that range. What's my backup plan if the shot doesn't work? There isn't one. This is the only window we'll get before the radar system becomes fully operational. And if I'm caught? If the Chinese figure out what happened? Jake was quiet for a moment. Officially, you don't exist. If something goes wrong, there's no paper trail leading back to the United States military. Deniable asset. Expendable asset, Jake corrected with brutal honesty. I won't lie to you about that. Maya appreciated the directness. She'd been an expendable asset before. All snipers were, really. The nature of the job meant accepting that you might not come home, that your death might be classified, that your family might never know exactly how or why you died. What's my cover? Marine Research Expedition. You'll be Dr. Maria Santos, a oceanographer studying coral reef development on uninhabited islands. Complete background, research credentials, even published papers in your name. How long do I have to prepare? Transport leaves in 18 hours. You'll have 2 days on location to set up and confirm the shooting solution. Quote. Maya turned back to the tactical display, studying the image of Dr. Chen Wei that had appeared alongside the radar installation. He looked like a grandfather, with wire-rimmed glasses and graying hair. In the photo, he was smiling at something off camera. She wondered if he had children, grandchildren, if he knew that his expertise had made him a target. It was the part of the job she'd never gotten used to, the humanity of the people at the other end of her scope. They weren't just targets or threats. They were people with families, hopes, problems, inside jokes. But they were also people whose continued existence posed a threat to others, and that was the calculus that made her job possible. I need to see the rifle. Jake led her deeper into the building, through more secured doors and down a staircase that ended at what looked like a small armory. Weapons racks lined the walls, filled with everything from standard-issue M4 carbines to exotic prototype systems Maya didn't recognize. In the center of the room, laid out on a specially designed table, was the most beautiful rifle Maya had ever seen. Macmillan TAC-50A2 with custom modifications, Jake said, his voice carrying the reverence of someone who understood precision equipment. Free-floating barrel, custom trigger assembly, and a scope system that incorporates real-time atmospheric data from satellite feeds. Maya approached the weapon like she was meeting an old friend. The rifle was massive, over 4 feet long and weighing nearly 30 pounds, but perfectly balanced. She lifted it carefully, feeling the quality of the craftsmanship in every component. Who modified it? Best gunsmith in the business. Former Marine, now works exclusively for operations like this. Jake handed her a small device that looked like a smartphone. This interfaces with the scope. It'll give you real-time wind data, atmospheric pressure readings, even predicted target movement based on behavioral analysis. Maya sighted down the rifle, testing the trigger pull. It was perfect, crisp, clean break, with no creep or over-travel. The scope was unlike anything she'd used before, with displays that could overlay trajectory data directly onto the target image. What's the ammunition? Custom match-grade .50 BMG rounds, loaded specifically for extreme-range work. Heavier bullets, specialized propellant, optimized for ballistic coefficient. She examined one of the cartridges. It was noticeably different from standard military ammunition. Longer, heavier, with modifications she could see in the bullet design. Effective range? In ideal conditions, tested to 8,000 meters. But conditions are never ideal. Maya nodded, hefting the rifle again. It felt right in her hands, like it had been built specifically for her, which, she realized, it probably had been. There's something else, Jake said. The mission isn't just about eliminating Dr. Chen. During the same calibration window, you'll need to disable the radar array itself. With a sniper rifle? The array has a critical junction box that controls the entire system. It's about the size of a briefcase, positioned on the exterior of the main structure. Destroy that, and the radar goes down even if they bring in another technician. Maya lowered the rifle, staring at Jake. You want me to make 2 precision shots at 6,000 meters within a 15-minute window. One at a moving human target, one at a small electronic component. That's the mission. She was quiet for a long moment, processing the tactical requirements. It wasn't just difficult. It was approaching the theoretical limits of what was possible with conventional weapons. But as she held the custom rifle, feeling its perfect balance and imagining the challenge of the shot, she felt something she hadn't experienced in 3 years. She felt alive. I'll need complete meteorological data for the target area, updated every hour until the mission. Done. I want to test fire this rifle before I leave. At least 50 rounds, at various ranges. There's a 2,000-meter range 30 minutes from here. We can be there in an hour. And I want full mission briefings on the target. Not just Dr. Chen, everyone on that island, their routines, their capabilities, their likely responses if things go wrong. Jake nodded. You'll have complete files on all personnel within 6 hours. Maya set the rifle back on its stand, her decision made. For 3 years, she'd been hiding from who she really was, pretending that she could be satisfied with anonymity and safety. But the truth was simpler and more dangerous. She was born to be a sniper, and everything else was just marking time. "One condition," she said. "Name it. When this is over, my current identity stays intact. I go back to being a civilian contractor, and no one comes looking for me again unless the world is literally ending." Agreed. Quote. Maya extended her hand, and Jake shook it. His grip was firm, calloused from years of handling weapons and rope and the 1,000 small tools of warfare. "Guess I should call in sick for my cleaning job," Maya said. "Already taken care of. You came down with food poisoning. Should be better in about a week." As they left the armory, Maya felt the familiar pre-mission adrenaline beginning to build. Part excitement, part terror, part anticipation of the unknown challenges ahead. It was a feeling she'd missed more than she wanted to admit. "Jake?" she called as they reached the staircase. "Yeah. That facial recognition software you ran my picture through, how many other people have access to it?" Jake paused, his expression growing serious. "Why?" "Because if you found me this easily, I'm wondering who else might be looking." The 2,000-meter range was located in a valley between rolling hills, isolated enough that the sound of gunfire wouldn't reach civilian areas. Maya lay prone behind the Macmillan TAC-50A2, adjusting her position with the microscopic precision that separated good shooters from legendary ones. The rifle was starting to feel familiar, though she could sense the small gaps where muscle memory wasn't quite as sharp as it had been during her active duty years. "Wind's shifting," Jake's voice came through her earpiece. He was positioned 50 meters to her left with spotting equipment and real-time meteorological data. 2 miles per hour increase from the southwest. Maya made minute adjustments to her scope, compensating for the wind change. At 2,000 meters, even small atmospheric variations could push her shots off target by significant margins. At 6,000 meters, the same variations would be magnified threefold. "Target acquired," she murmured, centering the crosshairs on a man-sized silhouette at the far end of the range. Through the scope's advanced optics, she could see the previous shots grouped tightly around the target's center mass. Not perfect, but well within acceptable parameters for a new weapon system. She controlled her breathing, finding the natural pause between heartbeats where her body was completely still. The trigger pull was glass smooth, breaking exactly where she expected it to. The rifle's recoil was significant, but manageable, and she stayed on target long enough to see the bullet impact. "Hit center mass," Jake confirmed. "That's 25 for 25 at this range." Quote. Maya rolled away from the rifle, working the stiffness out of her shoulders. The custom weapon was a marvel of engineering. But 3 hours of prone shooting took its toll even on someone in excellent physical condition. "The rifle's good," she said, "but 2,000 meters isn't 6,000. The ballistic challenges scale exponentially, not linearly." "I know. That's why we need to talk about the support package." Jake led her to a laptop set up on a nearby table. The screen showed a complex interface with multiple data streams: wind sensors, atmospheric pressure readings, temperature gradients, even seismic activity measurements. "This is what you'll have access to during the mission," he explained. "Satellite data updated every 30 seconds, weather prediction models with 15-minute accuracy, and ballistic computation support that can calculate trajectory adjustments faster than you can think." Maya studied the displays. It was impressive technology, but she'd learned to be skeptical of systems that promised to solve inherently complex problems. What happens when the technology fails? Satellites go offline, data feeds get interrupted, computers crash at the worst possible moment. Then you fall back on being the best sniper in the world. "Former sniper," Maya corrected. "I've been mopping floors for 3 years. Some of the edge comes off, even if the fundamentals stay." Jake gestured toward the target's downrange. 25 shots, 25 hits. The fundamentals are still there, but this is only 2,000 meters under controlled conditions. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and froze. The text message was from a number she didn't recognize, but the content made her blood run cold. "Enjoyed watching you shoot today. Some talents are too valuable to waste in civilian life. A friend." "Problem?" Jake asked, noticing her expression. Maya showed him the message. His face darkened as he read it. How many people knew we'd be here today? 3. You, me, and the range officer who unlocked the facility. Jake was already pulling out his own phone. I'm calling for a security sweep. Wait. Maya caught his arm. If someone's watching us, calling for backup might spook them. Better to act normal and figure out who they are. Jake considered this, then nodded. What do you want to do? Maya looked around the range, noting the elevated positions that would provide good observation points. The hills surrounding the valley offered multiple vantage points for surveillance, but most would require significant optical equipment to observe their shooting in detail. Pack up the gear like we're finished for the day. If someone's watching, they'll expect us to leave soon. They worked quickly but casually, breaking down the rifle and securing the equipment. Maya made a point of acting relaxed, even laughing at something Jake said, but her mind was racing through possibilities. The message suggested surveillance sophisticated enough to identify her specifically and track her current activities in real time. As they loaded the gear into Jake's vehicle, Maya spotted it, a brief reflection of sunlight from a position about 800 meters northeast of their location. Someone with optical equipment, positioned to observe the entire range. Hill position at 2 o'clock, she said quietly. Someone's been watching with optics. Jake didn't turn to look, but she saw his posture shift slightly. What's the play? Drive out of here normally, but take the long way back to base and watch for surveillance. The drive back took them through rural North Carolina countryside, past farms and small towns that looked like postcards from an earlier era of American life. Maya watched the mirrors carefully, looking for vehicles that stayed with them too long or showed signs of professional surveillance techniques. Clean so far, she said after 20 minutes, but that doesn't mean we're not being tracked by other means. You think someone's compromised the mission? Maya considered the question carefully. The timing of the message was too perfect to be coincidental. Someone had known exactly when and where to observe her, and they'd had the technical capability to watch from significant distance. I think someone's been watching me for longer than just today. Jake's phone rang, interrupting her thoughts. He answered with a terse Morrison, then listened for several seconds before responding with a string of military acronyms Maya didn't recognize. That was Captain Martinez, he said after ending the call. She wants to see you immediately. Maya's heart rate spiked. Captain Sarah Martinez was the woman who'd offered her a new identity in that German hospital, the person responsible for her transition from KIA soldier to civilian contractor. If Martinez was involved in this mission, it meant the stakes were higher than Jake had indicated. Where? Quote, the same building we just left, but this time we're going to the basement. The elevator descended for what felt like much longer than the building's apparent height would suggest. Maya counted floors, past the ground level where they'd been earlier, past what should have been the basement, continuing down into what had to be a significant underground facility. How deep does this place go? She asked. Deep enough, Jake replied. This facility has been expanding for decades. Started as a Cold War bunker, now it's something else entirely. The elevator finally stopped, and the doors opened onto a corridor that looked more like a starship than a government building. LED strips provided clean, bright lighting, and the walls were lined with the kind of advanced monitoring equipment that suggested serious money and serious purpose. Captain Sarah Martinez was waiting for them in a conference room that could have hosted the Joint Chiefs of Staff. She looked exactly as Maya remembered, sharp-eyed, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone accustomed to making decisions that affected thousands of lives. But there was something different about her now, a tension that Maya hadn't seen during their previous encounters. Maya, Martinez said, standing as they entered. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? Martinez smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. There's always a choice, though some choices are easier to live with than others. Maya took the seat across from Martinez, noting that Jake positioned himself where he could watch both women and the room's entrance. Whatever was happening here, it involved more than just the mission in the South China Sea. You received an interesting text message today, Martinez said without preamble. You've been monitoring my communications. We've been monitoring communications around this facility since we began planning the operation. Your message was concerning. Martinez activated a wall display that showed the text message Maya had received, along with technical analysis data. Source location, transmission routes, digital forensics information that meant nothing to Maya but clearly worried the intelligence professionals. The message was sent through an encrypted proxy service, bounced through servers in 7 different countries, and funded with cryptocurrency that's been laundered through offshore accounts. This isn't casual surveillance, it's professional-grade intelligence work. Quote, Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the air conditioning. Who's watching me? That's what we're trying to figure out. But whoever it is, they have access to information they shouldn't. The fact that you were at that specific range, using that specific weapon, at that specific time, that's operational intelligence that was restricted to a very small group. Jake leaned back in his chair, watching Maya process the implications of what Martinez had revealed. The bottom line, Martinez continued, is that your cover may be blown wider than we initially thought, but that also means this mission has become even more critical. If hostile intelligence services know about you, we need to complete this operation and get you to safety before they can act on that knowledge. Maya stood up, her decision crystallizing. When do we leave? 6 hours, Jake said. Transport to the staging area, final equipment check, and insertion tomorrow night. As Maya prepared to leave the conference room, Martinez called her name one final time. Maya, I want you to know, whatever happens on this mission, you've already served your country beyond any reasonable expectation. This operation is voluntary. You can still walk away. Maya paused at the door, thinking about the quiet life she'd built mopping floors and staying invisible. Then she thought about the radar system that could threaten thousands of lives, and the skills that made her uniquely capable of stopping it. I'll see you at the transport, Jake. Maya Rodriguez walked out of the underground facility, knowing that in 48 hours, she would either complete the most impossible shot in military history or die trying. But for the first time in 3 years, she felt like herself again. The longest shot of her career was about to begin.